It says,
Okay, thank you. Hey, good morning, good evening, wherever you are logging from. And we are excited for this maiden and the conversation with my dear friend Richa. Richa and I go very short while in the past of our coaching credentialing, and she happened to be my mentor coach at one point in time, and good conversationalist over the months and week that followed afterwards. And here we are today, Richa, for this first freewheeling conversation with you. For those of you, a bit introduction about Richa. She had been for like most of us, been a corporate career of years together in banking, and then transition into being an educator, a coach herself. Uh, Runs a company called Coach Champion. I got that correct rightly, Coach Champion, and someone who strongly believes in the power and the transformative power of coaching. And yeah, and that's how our common interests lie and converge. Thank you, Richa, for agreeing to this conversation today, this evening for you, this morning for me. And thank you, audiences who have logged in. Love to have your perspective throughout this conversation. So this is not a formal panel discussion or a webinar. It's a freewheeling, and that there we go, Risha.
thank you, Sadan, for having me as somebody who you want to have this conversation with, which is very close to my heart. And while I have been your mentor, I think you were right that the conversations that we have had afterwards have been truly amazing, and I loved connecting with you every time. So I love the caption that you've given to our conversation today, which is too busy to coach, too busy to lead. So, what is the story behind that?
That's fascinating because I was quite in split mind thinking about the title of this conversation today. Too busy to coach, then you are too busy to lead, which is slightly longish, and we hate that. But it has such a powerful punch in terms of the compelling reality that we all, as leaders or coaches, face every day. The most commonest of the refrain, Risha and all of you, Arnav, Gaurav, you can relate to that. Whenever you speak to practicing managers and leaders in organizations, so I'm talking about managers and leaders, right from the first time managers all the way to the C suite, whenever you approach them and talk about leadership coaching, managerial coaching, sales coaching, they all agree in the transformative power of coaching. But when it comes to intention getting reflected as action, the commonest refrain, we are too busy. Meaning, my job priorities are at odds with each other. That leaves me with very little time to think over and engage in something which is strategic, which is intentional, which is presence based, and that is coaching. And if there is anything as their priority check order, coaching possibly fall way below the ladder. However, we all agree there is a subtle difference between managing and leading. I was recently reading one of the interviews from Jeff Bezos, and he was quite vocal, saying that I and my immediate team members, if we start doing any day a transactional work which is concerning with this current year's deliverables and priorities, we then pinch each other saying we are not leading Amazon to its future destinations. Any day as a leadership team, we always keep talking about what Amazon would be in next 3 years from now. That beautifully sums up the whole priority picking order of managing day to day vis-a-vis leading for the future. That precisely is the point that managers often are, and rightfully so, due to the whirlwind of priorities and deliverables. They are caught up in a mess, which leaves them with little time or no time to engage in meaningful conversation. At the end of the day, coaching is nothing but an evolved form of conversation. Hope that gives the context to all of us.
Yeah.
I see at this point in
तो
time,
रिचा
Aarti
किसी का
has
इंटरव्यू
joined
से
in.
बात पे चैट पे आई हुई है.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Richa?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And that gives me another strong thing to believe in, which is like when you differentiate managers from leaders, there are essentially so many hats that a leader wears, which a manager might not, right? For example, we talk of having a coaching mindset, but then there are circumstances when things need to be taken care in, say, you have to do it urgently or something like that. Then you need to have a different approach. So in my experience, and I speak a lot about it, Southern, that we all need to have the coaching mindset, and I'm sure we are going to discuss a little bit about that. But even as a leader, you coach when your team member has the skills, but let's say they lack clarity or ownership. Then you kind of sorry, I was just admitting. So then you kind of instead of giving them answers, you ask them questions that empower them, and then you mentor your team when you feel that they lack the experience and they could use your guidance, right? You share insights, you offer direction, and you help them grow. And and in the circumstances that we were talking about, when it is like, a deadline, something where a situation calls for speed or precision, then you direct, you wear the hat of a consultant or an expert, right? You give them direction when there's no trying for trial and error. So I think it's nuanced, it's not very easy, but then yes, I deeply believe in having a coaching hat.
No, that's such a powerful segue into the conversation. And we can all relate to that a practicing manager, even if we call them manager without going into the semantics, they wear multiple hats, and one of them being that of a coach. So, manager as a coach is a profound theme and a practicing theme. However, let's step back here at this point in time of our conversation as to what prevents them. Everyone agrees, no one refutes. Possibly there would be a minority of leaders who would refute the impact that coaching brings to them. Very few of them would actually talk about that coaching does nothing. Still, why managers fail to discharge this all important task of coaching their team members. And as I was doing my own reflection and preparing for this conversation, the first thing that showed up in my mind was about as long as managers start treating coaching as a separate line item, which needs exclusive quote unquote special time, a formal time which needs
Yeah.
to be calendarized in their busy schedule, that's where the struggle becomes so daunting for them. And
And so I
hence,
have a
why,
question.
yeah,
I have
please
a
go ahead.
question. So, how do you suggest managers include coaching in their day-to-day and not make it something which is super heavy or something that needs to be done separately from their job?
That precisely I was about to go into. Thanks for bringing that up the order. The first way the leaders and the internal coaches, the HR practitioners, must talk and sensitize their leaders not to treat the coaching as a separate, special, formal event. Their
Yeah.
coaching can take multiple forms and formats, one of them being executive coaching or the professional world of coaching, which definitely is a different ball game altogether. But if we are talking about leader as a coach or manager as a coach, and that's where democratization of coaching, even the larger interest uh, by ICF, EMCCs, ACs of the world, that they think they would achieve to make the world a better place to live, this must have a ground swelling from every organization. And to happen, coaching must be made as a way of life. Easier said than done. Again, some people might find there is a lot of jargon and theory going here. simple, doable technique is the introduction of the concept of micro coaching.
Interesting.
And when I say micro coaching, these are bursts of coaching encounters or conversation with a mindset that must be drilled well into onboarding of any new manager, called ATC. It's not air traffic control, but it is anytime coaching. With the right mindset, and I'm sure you are going to talk about coaching mindset, with the right coaching mindset, every manager can potentially turn every moment of encounter, of conversation with their team members, into an ATC, anytime coaching conversation. And those are nothing but your micro coaching moments. I call them as an opportunity to ask one profound question, followed by deep listening. What is being spoken, and as the manager matures or evolves, even for what is not spoken. Those are the micro coaching moments. For example, let me give you a real life example. When we see, every one of us can relate to this. When we see in the middle of meeting breakouts or networking opportunities, there are some water cooler moments, conversation going on, which might be job related, work related. And the first thing that the manager goes talking to the team member by default would be giving advices. What someone like Michael Bungistenia, I love his writing and work. He talks about advice monster. Tame your advice monster. So micro coaching moment should be where you are giving no advices. Just stay curious, ask a question, and in order to remain curious, uh, you must practice what I love bringing up at this point in time for our viewers here. I have written something, the three alphabets, if that is quite visible. It's called awe questions. It's nothing but, if you expand this, and what else? These three words does miracle. So the micro coaching moments, when you ask a question and your team member replies you back, instead of starting with your own advices and your solutioning hat, bring in your awe question, which is nothing but asking, and what else? Give it a try a couple of times. Whenever you listen something that is coming up from your team member, you will find after 2-3 such iteration, the person might say something, Richa, that's what I know, I'm done. Possibly an indication that you need to build upon that through a next follow-up question. But my suggestion to practice micro coaching is, first, stay curious, inquire what's going on in their lives and work. Once you listen back, follow up with an awe question, and what else? This is a very practical and doable way, I guess, for most of us in practicing micro coaching moments.
Yeah. And I love those tips. And when you were sharing about not giving advice, I think from the cultures that we all are, we are a culture of problem solvers, the fixers, right? We want to give advice, we want to fix things. So it is difficult for us to not offer advice, and it is difficult to not jump in with advice and ask questions. But I think there is an unlearning that is involved in this process as well, right? To step back and to listen, right? When we were growing up, we were taught how to read, how to write, how to speak, but we were never taught how to listen. So I think when I talk of coaching mindset, Southern, and first of all, I believe that leadership is not something which needs to be shown in a professional setting or at work. Mahatma Gandhi did not go to any office or something like that, but still he is one of the biggest leaders that we all know. So we can be leaders at any space that we are in. And to have that leadership quality and to have a coaching mindset, I believe we need to be good listeners first. We need to provide that space to people around us to speak to us, and then not immediately jump in with advice. Definitely not. To ask open-ended questions like, yeah, what would you think is a good thing to do in this situation here, rather than just telling, do this and your problem will be solved. So you empower people and then you provide constructive feedback, and it does not entail any criticism, but you offer critical advice in the form of a feed forward. I'm a big believer of feed forward, wherein you believe in the goodness, you believe in the skills of that person, and instead of criticizing, you offer them advice like, hey, you try this and maybe this will be a better approach, or something like that, if they need your advice. And then celebrate successes. So we are the first ones to criticize, we are the first ones to come back with feedback when things don't go well, but I feel that sometimes we often lag when things need to be celebrated. And when we do all of these three, four small things, I think we can all embody a coaching mindset, and it does not remain as a jargon, but a real thing which we can all practice in our daily lives, at our homes, at our offices, at any place that we belong to.
You couldn't have agreed more. In my recent writings, I was contemplating on this ICF or EMCC phrase called coaching mindset. Too often we drop these jargons, and there is a good friend of mine in the audience who knows uh, more about me through jargons. And they make very fuzzier sense to the general public. And in this context, I'm talking about the average manager. They don't get it. And in fact, I wrote an entire chapter on how do you turn ICF competencies relatable for practicing managers.
Yeah.
And this can all be drilled well if we bring in those micro coaching habits or micro coaching moments through what I called ATC, anytime coaching moments. So as we are well into our conversation, Richa, I see there are some interesting minds out there in the audience. And this conversation, as I mentioned, is a freewheeling. This is not a structured conversation or a panel with you. I would definitely love to tap into the wisdom of some of our audiences here. So with your permission, let me invite a couple of them to talk their experience about how they relate into. I see Shalini there, Vartika. Vartika is a dear friend and a professor at IIM Amritsar. Gaurav, I see Gaurav, Arnav. So I see hands going up, Gaurav. So why don't you unmute and come live on the screen and ask your question? Then I would definitely reach out to both Vartika, Arnav in that way. So yeah, Gaurav,
Thank you.
over to you.
Thank you, Chandan. Thank you, Richa. I think you touched upon people manager coaching their team members. So I was interested to know, like, how should they suit their frequency to meet requirements for different team members? Like, different team members have different motivations and development levels. So how do they tune their frequency for different team members?
Was that question for me, or Rich, I would like to fill that question first?
Why don't you go ahead and then I can speak to it?
Okay, thank you. Gaurav, it all depends, and I'm quite a big fan of what is known as situational leadership. So it all depends on situational context. When I say situational, situational means developmental context on a particular task. And because that's the purest form to describe situational leadership, one of the finest theories of leadership that has existed more than half a century. And that context, it definitely, to your question, Gaurav, I would approach it task by task. Depending on a particular task, my coaching moments might be slightly longish. It might have, being a practicing manager, it might have a mix of both strategic advice giving, turning direct giving advices into profound coaching questions, what Richa was alluding to sometimes back. And then, depending on some other task, I might even go hands free and encourage and give some feedback to reinforce how they're doing. So, in nutshell, to answer that real life and a big question there, it would be purely situational, Gaurav, depending on where they are on their developmental journey. Anything, Risha, that you'd like to add on to that?
No, that was like my IIM Amritsar moment. Thank you. It felt like coming from an instructor from the and you couldn't have said it better.
Thanks, Richa. Anyone in the audience that would like to build on what I just said? Maybe why don't you give it a shot to Vartika, and then I will turn over to my
Arnab
practicing
just
leader.
unmuted. Arnab just unmuted himself.
Oh,
I unmuted
yeah,
myself
please.
because what Sadhan is saying takes me back to when Sadhan and I were working together. So it builds on the fact that when Gaurav was asking about frequency, I would take it as readiness. Am I ready to do this job? If I'm ready, where am I? My ability, which is my competence, and the second dimension is my willingness. So, for example, and by task. In this case, in organizational setting, as a manager, if I'm looking at the sales manager, there are many tasks that he or she needs to perform. There are few tasks where the willingness and capabilities both would be high. There would be an encouraging style of conversation or coaching conversation going in. If the ability is low but willingness is high, maybe mentoring could be an approach, or like training, or like handholding, whatever you call it. The problem starts when capability is high, but willingness is low, which is like I won't. It is not I can't.
Hmm.
So when it is I won't, it says that I am capable, but I won't do it. So like, when I started my career in L&D, just like Sadhan, we were together. We used to do a KSC, knowledge, skill, and capability. And then there was another dimension that we used to think of was coachability. How coachable am I? But that is not for the person as a whole, not for the role as a whole, but the tasks that the role demands in organizational or this kind of setup. I'm not talking about life coaching, executive coaching, or professional coaching, which Sadhan was mentioning. I'm talking about day to day when manager needs to act as a coach from that perspective. Sometimes, as you said, Richa, manager dons three hats: leader, manager, and coach.
Yeah.
So my preferred style is coaching and leadership. And I keep telling this, management just happens.
Mhm.
So I think these are few things we need to understand. So in terms of frequency, I'll get back to, I'll respond to Gaurav's thing, rather interpret that as readiness for a particular task. That is all from my side.
Thank you,
Thank
Arnab.
you, Arnav.
I really resonated with the matrix or the framework that you mentioned there, willingness and capability, one high and the other low. That is food for thought. Thank you for sharing that.
And that's the power of the collective wisdom here in the
Absolutely.
audience. So,
So,
Vartika, if you are listening us,
yes, yes, yes.
and
Yeah, and it's very interesting pointers coming up from all of you. So, in fact, whenever I sit for your session, I become a student more to grasp a lot from. And since I could see that Arnav, Richa, and both, and you, bringing such nice points, and Gaurav's question was on point. I have a question rather than a comment to be made. So, since Richa mentioned about three things when she was talking about culture building, one thing that when I impart any kind of MDPs to PSUs, particularly executives from PSUs, this coaching concept, as you rightly said at the start, that they are not able to grasp it that well because they're still in that mode of tell. Rather, coaching, as you have always said, is more to ask. So then, when I would give this concept of celebrating success, I just wanted to understand from everybody in the audience and also from you and Richa that what are the parameters as to how can we implement this as a practice of celebrating success. So whenever I would tell them this, they would say that, so what do you want us to do? So they're like, so what should be the answer or what should be the approach of celebrating success? What do you mean by that when you say that as coaches, that we need to have that mindset? that even a small win is a big win when we are trying to break a bigger target into milestones. So, how do we do that? So, my question largely boils down to that point.
Yeah, and Vartik, I'll probably take the first stab and would depend on the collective wisdom of the group after that. So we do believe in team norms, team rituals, team cultures. And when I said celebrate success, I meant acknowledging the individuals and team's successes. And this is solely when you are the leader, when you are the manager, when you're trying to build that coaching culture, when you're trying to embody the coaching mindset. Because see, recognition, it boosts morale, right? And it reinforces a culture of achievement and motivation. So that's why what we are trying to create is that we bolster each other, we support each other, and we celebrate the milestones, we celebrate achievements, whether it's individual or team. And then, it kind of gets into a recursive loop on its own. And you see that if you focus on the celebrations, the wins, the small successes, it continues to happen more and more. The morale is boosted up as well. Sadan, I see you deep in thoughts and nodding. What do you want to add there?
That's an existence for me in my current role as the founder of Well and Learning, and I'm a big fan of again Ken Blanchard's work, and I love quoting that feedback as positive, negative should be banned. Instead, I love picking up straight from his vocabulary what I call redirect and reinforcement. So whenever you see something being done well, however small that might be, I would like to reinforce in through genuine, what I saw the comment coming in from Arnav, a genuine praise, an authentic praise, and not just to puff up the
Exactly.
things. So that's reinforcement for me. And whenever I see a correctional opportunity, instead of giving them negative feedback, which practicing managers often say positive feedback, negative feedback, I hate these two words. Redirect them to something by way of micro coaching moments. And I again find all questions are solid tool to apply here. And what else? You have done this. This produced a result X, which is we all agree is subpar. And what else you could have done? That is a coaching moment for me where I'm redirecting the whole focus. What could have been done differently could be done better. The second thing, to Vartika's point, uh, these days, I don't really say often without any kind of say context and disclaimer. Coaching is not all about asking good question alone.
Yeah.
That's a misconception that we have peddled long, that coaching is all about asking questions. And I love quoting Professor David Clutterbuck here. He talked about the tyranny, save the managers from tyranny of questions. And that really is, coaching is nothing but a thinking partner roles. A coach makes you think, which is possibly one of the hardest things in today's business of busyness. We don't get downtime to think, reflect. And coaching is nothing, an evolved form of contemplation with someone who can hold a mirror, hold a safe space to experiment.
Yeah.
So that's a reframing after years of coaching, both through training and through practice. The coaching is no longer just all about asking good questions alone. Just to put that in context, I say Arnav's hand going up. What's Thank you, Vartik, for that.
So I totally agree to this point that you're making. Coaching is not just about asking a battery of questions after questions, and then people get ridiculed. They don't know what to answer. They stay in a zone of, ignorance, I would say, because they don't know it. So sometimes I think, and it has worked by far. Sometimes you need to give, advocacy or impart that knowledge as the conversation is happening, because we must always remember that the levels of awareness is not always same. I'm coaching somebody voluntarily in my organization, and I find that when I'm doing so, there are places where this person is not aware. So I cannot expect her to be responding because she is not aware. So I felt that my job is to first build that awareness. Maybe that could be advocacy, could be advice, whatever you call it. Little bit of training, maybe, providing her with the framework, providing her with the concept. Allow that to settle in, and maybe next week asking about what are your thoughts, what else, you know. I felt that but this is a debatable ground. Many people say coaching is all about asking questions, which I don't always, you know, usually initially I used to believe in that, but as I'm aging, I'm finding it's not always that.
As I am aging, I am also finding that it's not about asking questions. It is about holding that space. It is about being a good
Exactly.
listener. It is about showing the mirror, a lot of those things.
Fantastic, free flowing of ideas, the common wisdom sitting in this virtual world. And couldn't have thanked more this evening, this morning for all of us indulging is this quality conversation, which we lack in today's society and priorities. I'm quite mindful about the time at this point in time. We have possibly exceeded 2-3 minutes more than the desired one. Couldn't have thanked more Richa for agreeing to come over to this freewheeling chat, not a typical panel discussion. And thanks everyone in the audience for your valued insights. This made it so much of richer and fuller.
Thank you,
Until
everyone.
the next episode,
And thank you, Sadan.
we
I
say
was just gonna say thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sadan. I had so much fun talking to everyone, those who contributed in chat, asked questions, or those who are just present. And I look forward to many more such conversations.
indeed. Thank you so much, everyone, for
Thank you,
having
Rita.
this
Thanks, Sadhan.
morning
Thank you, everyone.
conversation.
Have a wonderful
Have
day.
a
Thank
good
you. See
evening
you
and a good
soon.
day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.